Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today, in this video, I will be narrating you the story of Prophet Musa A.S. Prophet Musa A.S. was a great prophet of Allah. Allah loved Musa A.S. dearly and has mentioned him more than any other prophet in the Qur'an. Allah even spoke to Musa A.S. directly, which is a huge honor. Because of this, Musa A.S. is also known as Kalimullah, which means to whom Allah has spoken. Musa A.S. was born in Egypt and was a direct descendant of Ibrahim A.S. Musa A.S. was born into the tribe of Bani Israel, also known as the children of Israel. The Bani Israel descended from Yusuf A.S., who was born in Palestine but later made his home in Egypt. The Banu Israel are said to have been favored by Allah, but Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, treated them badly. He was a cruel king, and the Banu Israel suffered under his rule. Once Pharaoh had a dream that a baby boy would be born into the Banu Israel, and that boy would one day kill Pharaoh. Pharaoh became frightened, and to stop the dream coming true, he ordered his soldiers to kill all the baby boys born to the Banu Israel. After Musa A.S. was born, his mother was terrified that Pharaoh's soldiers would find and kill her baby. But Allah showed Musa A.S.'s mother a dream in which he guided her to put him into the river Nile. When Pharaoh's soldiers came to search the house, Musa A.S.'s mother quickly put him into a wooden basket and put the basket into the river. The water carried the baby away. Musa A.S.'s mother was scared for her baby, and although it was hard for her to watch him drift away, she believed Allah would look after him. Musa A.S.'s mother sent her daughter to follow the basket. Eventually, the basket washed up from the river Nile right near Pharaoh's palace. The guards at the palace found the baby and took him to Pharaoh's wife, Asiya. Asiya was a kind woman, and as soon as she saw the baby, she loved him. She asked Pharaoh not to kill the baby and instead to let her adopt him. Pharaoh agreed. Asiya sent her maids out to find a wet nurse who could breastfeed baby Musa A.S. Through the will of Allah, Musa A.S. rejected all the wet nurses who came forward. Finally, Musa A.S.'s sister came forward and said she knew of a woman who could feed the baby, but kept it a secret that the woman was Musa A.S.'s mother. When Musa A.S.'s mother began to feed him, he accepted her milk. Through Allah's mercy, Musa A.S.'s mother, who had placed her trust in him and watched her baby drift away down the river Nile, was reunited with her child as his wet nurse. Musa A.S. would be taken to his mother's home every day so that she could feed him. The years passed. Musa A.S. lived in Pharaoh's palace as a prince and became a big and incredibly strong young man. One time, Musa A.S. was walking through town and came across two men who were fighting. One man was from Banu Israel, and the other man was an Egyptian. The man from Banu Israel called out to Musa A.S. to help. Musa A.S. intervened and struck the Egyptian to stop the fight, but Musa A.S. was so strong that the man died from a single blow. Musa A.S. did not mean to hurt the Egyptian. He was filled with deep sorrow and begged Allah to forgive him for what had happened. The next day, Musa A.S. was out walking again and came across the same man from Banu Israel who was fighting with another Egyptian. Again, the man from Banu Israel called on Musa A.S. to help. This time, Musa A.S. recognized that the man was a troublemaker and said no to the man. At this comment, the man from Banu Israel deliberately shouted loudly, "Are you going to kill me like you killed the man yesterday?" The news quickly reached the Pharaoh that Musa A.S. had killed a man. The Pharaoh and his thieves planned to kill Musa A.S. as a punishment, but a kind man warned Musa A.S. and told him to leave Egypt before he could be arrested. Musa A.S. left Egypt quickly and traveled to a far-away town called Madian. It was a long and difficult journey. When Musa A.S. arrived in Madian, he saw a well with many shepherds around it, watering their animals. There were two women near the well with their animals, but they were not able to get any water because of all the other shepherds pushing before them. Seeing that they needed help, Musa A.S. drew water from the well for the two women. The two women went home to their father and told him what had happened. Their father wanted to reward this kind man and invited Musa A.S. to his home and offered him a job. Later, one of his man's daughters married Musa A.S. Musa A.S. spent 10 years in Madian, working for his father-in-law. Although he was happy there, he missed his family in Egypt. He wanted to see them again, so he set off on a journey back to Egypt with his wife. During their journey back to Egypt, Musa A.S. and his family lost their way. They wandered in the dark until they spotted a fire. Musa A.S. went to investigate in the hope that the people near the fire would direct him towards Egypt, and perhaps give him some burning wood to keep his family warm. When Musa A.S. approached the fire, he saw that it was actually a burning tree. As the tree burned, it became greener instead of turning to ash. Musa A.S. was amazed, and it was at this point that Allah called out to Musa A.S. and informed him that he was a prophet of Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told Musa A.S. to go to Pharaoh and invite him to Islam. Pharaoh was evil and tormented the Bani Israel. Allah wanted Pharaoh to free his servants and not to behave cruelly toward them anymore. Musa A.S. used to speak with a stammer. He was worried that he would not be able to speak to the people properly and asked Allah to provide him with support from his brother Harun a.s. Allah granted Musa a.s. his prayer and strengthened him through his brother. In this way, Musa a.s. brother Harun a.s. also became a prophet of Allah. When Musa a.s. arrived in Egypt, he went to Pharaoh to deliver his message from Allah. Pharaoh was arrogant and mocked Musa a.s. Pharaoh believed that he was a god and threatened to punish Musa a.s. if he did not stop spreading the message of the one true Allah. Musa a.s. showed Pharaoh and his chiefs two miracles that he had been granted by Allah. The first miracle was that Musa a.s. threw his stick on the ground. When he threw the stick, Allah turned it into a snake. When Musa a.s. picked up the snake, it turned back into the stick. Secondly, Musa a.s. put his hand inside his garments. When Musa a.s. removed his hand, it emerged bright and shining white. Despite seeing these two miracles, Pharaoh still did not believe and accused Musa a.s. of being a magician. Pharaoh challenged Musa a.s. to a competition against the best magicians in Egypt. The contest began with the magicians first throwing their sticks and ropes that appeared to turn into moving snakes. But this was just a trick of the light. The sticks and ropes were not real snakes. Musa a.s. then threw his stick. Through Allah's power, the stick actually turned into an even bigger snake and swallowed up all other ropes and sticks. The magicians recognized the miracle of Allah and fell down in prostration, saying, "We have believed in the Lord of the worlds, the Lord of Musa and Harun." Pharaoh became angry when he heard this. He was worried that people would start to follow Musa a.s. and Harun a.s. and stopped believing in him as a god. Pharaoh knew he had to stop this and set about causing more harm and suffering for the people of Bani Israel. Throughout all of this, Musa a.s. told them to be patient. Because Pharaoh refused to let the Bani Israel free, Allah sent severe trials to the people of Egypt. Still, Pharaoh refused. Finally, Musa A.S. was commanded by Allah to make preparations for the Banu Israel to leave Egypt and go to Palestine. The Banu Israel left secretly and quickly one night, so that Pharaoh could not stop them. But Pharaoh found out, and before the hundreds and hundreds of people could reach Palestine safely, Pharaoh gathered his army and sped behind them. Musa A.S. and the Banu Israel headed east towards Palestine and reached the Red Sea at sunrise. They saw that the army of Pharaoh was chasing them, but they were trapped. There was no way to cross the Red Sea. Musa A.S. stood in front of the Red Sea, and Allah commanded him to strike the sea with his stick. When he did this, a great miracle occurred. The mighty Red Sea parted in the middle, and the waves rose like mountains on either side of the Bani Israel, and a path appeared for them to walk safely to the other side. The sea stayed parted until Musa A.S. and the Banu Israel had crossed it safely. When Pharaoh and his army were in the middle of crossing, Allah commanded the sea to come together. The mountainous waves came crushing down on Pharaoh and his army. At the last moment, Pharaoh cried out that he believed in Allah and the message of Musa A.S., but it was too late for him to believe, and he drowned. The Banu Israel were finally free from the tyrant Pharaoh. They traveled with Musa A.S. towards Palestine because Allah wanted them to settle in Jerusalem. When the Banu Israel reached Palestine, they found it was occupied by another tribe who did not believe in Allah. Through Musa A.S., Allah ordered the Banu Israel to take back Jerusalem from the disbelievers. But the Banu Israel had lived too long as slaves in Egypt. Now they were cowardly and said, "We will not go into Jerusalem until the people have left." They also said to Musa A.S., "You go with your Lord and fight these people." Musa A.S. was very upset with the words and actions of the Banu Israel, because after everything Allah had done for them, they were not obeying him, because the Banu Israel did not do as Allah had commanded. They lost their way in the desert. For 40 years, the Banu Israel wandered in circles around the desert, but could not find their way back to Jerusalem. During this time in the desert, Musa A.S. had a special meeting with Allah. First, Musa A.S. had to fast for 40 days to purify himself in order to meet Allah. He left his brother Harun A.S. in charge of Banu Israel. On the second meeting with Allah, Musa A.S. asked Allah to grant him the gift of seeing the Almighty instead of just hearing him speak. Allah told Musa A.S. that he did not have the strength to see Allah. However, Musa A.S. insisted. Allah told Musa A.S. that he would show a part of him on a nearby mountain. When the light of Allah struck, the mountain crumbled to dust, and Musa A.S. fainted. When Musa awoke, he realized how mighty and great Allah was, that the mere light of Allah's being could destroy an entire mountain. Allah gave guidance for the Banu Israel to Musa A.S., which was written down on 2 tablets made of stone. When Musa A.S. returned to his people, he found them worshipping a golden calf that they had built whilst he was away. Musa A.S. was so angry at what he saw that he threw down the tablets. The Banu Israel had committed a great sin by worshipping an idol. Worshipping anything other than Allah is the worst thing a believer can do, and the Banu Israel received a severe punishment from Allah for it. Later, Musa A.S. prayed to Allah to forgive his people, and Allah accepted the prayer of Musa A.S. The Qur'an tells us many stories of Musa A.S. and his people, the Banu Israel. Musa A.S. faced many challenges to free his people from Pharaoh and take them to Jerusalem, but he never reached the Holy Land. When Musa A.S. passed away, he asked to be buried close to the city of Jerusalem so that he could be near it, even if he had not entered it during his lifetime. May Allah's peace be upon him. Please like, share and subscribe to our channel. Jazakallah.